In the late hours of August 29, 1994, firefighters in Vinton, Virginia rushed toward the glow of a family home engulfed in flames. Inside that home lay 4 lives: mother, father, and 2 young daughters. But when the smoke cleared, what they found wasn't just a fire. It was execution. Each life taken in a different way. Teresa Hodges strangled. Blaine, the father, shot. 11-year-old Winter and 3-year-old Anah also shot. And then the killers set the house ablaze, hoping to erase the evidence. What could drive someone to wipe out an entire family in such a brutal way? And what if I told you the man responsible was not a stranger, not a passing shadow, but someone they had welcomed into their lives? A man who called himself their friend. Welcome back to the True Crime Shadow. I want to thank all of you, my subscribers who continue to support this channel and keep these stories alive. And if you're new here, join us. Hit that subscribe button, like, and share. From time to time, we uncover crimes that shake the soul and force us to question just how well we really know the people around us. May your family stay safe wherever you are. Tonight's story takes us into the heart of Virginia, to a family that never could have imagined the darkness walking so close to them. Blaine Hodges, 41, was a man who had built a reputation as steady and reliable. A former post office worker, he had turned toward teaching, passionate about computers and education. He was a man who believed in family. Teresa Hodges, his wife, 37, was known as nurturing, calm, and deeply devoted to her daughters. Winter, at just 11 years old, was stepping into those tender preteen years, bright, full of promise, loved by her teachers. And Anah, only 3, a toddler with all the innocence of a child who had barely begun her journey. For lives intertwined in love, ordinary in the best way possible. And then there was Earl Conrad Bramblett, a man who drifted into their circle like a storm cloud. Born in 1942, Bramblett carried the image of a regular man, someone you could mistake for just another neighbor. But underneath, something darker brewed. He was a man with resentments, obsessions, and secrets. By the early 1990s, Bramblett had been a family acquaintance of the Hodges for years. He spent time around them, got close enough to know their rhythms, their vulnerabilities. Some described him as eccentric, others as unsettling. What no one fully saw, or perhaps what they ignored, was the way he fixated on young Winter. Evidence later revealed that Bramblett harbored deeply disturbing thoughts toward the child. He even recorded them in tapes, secret audio diaries where his own voice betrayed him, where he spoke of his inappropriate desires and his hostility toward Blaine. Imagine that. A trusted family friend, sitting in their living room, harboring thoughts he dared not reveal in the open but preserved in the dark privacy of his recordings. The Hodges didn't know it, but they were standing beside a ticking time bomb. Blaine had his stresses. Financial difficulties weighed on him after leaving the Postal Service, and his career path wasn't as stable as it once had been. But despite those struggles, there were no enemies, no vendettas that anyone could point to. And yet, behind the facade, Bramblett grew increasingly bitter. He resented Blaine, saw him as an obstacle, and became obsessed with his family. When you look back, the tension was a current running beneath the surface. Then came the night of August 29, 1994. In the quiet Virginia town, as darkness settled, something unthinkable unfolded inside the Hodges home. We can only reconstruct it from the evidence. Blaine was shot. Teresa was strangled. Her final moments brutal and personal, the act of someone who wanted control, not just death. Little Anah, only 3 years old, was shot as well. And Winter, 11, also shot. Imagine the silence that must have followed in that house, broken only by the crackle of flames when Bramblett ignited the fire to cover his tracks. Neighbors awoke to the glow and the sirens. Firefighters battled the blaze. And then, inside, among the charred remains, they discovered the bodies. 4 members of one family. Gone. The first responders thought at first it was simply a deadly fire. But the truth revealed itself quickly. Teresa's strangulation marks. Gunshot wounds in Blaine and the girls. The fire wasn't the cause, it was the cover. A murder scene staged in flames. Detectives faced a haunting question. Who would want this family dead? At first, no one could imagine it. The Hodges weren't enemies to anyone. But slowly, eyes turned toward Earl Bramblett. He was close. Too close. And then came the evidence that would unravel his mask. Investigators searched through his belongings and uncovered something chilling: audio tapes. On those tapes, Bramblett himself spoke words that would seal his fate. He confessed, in his own twisted way, his hatred for Blaine, his disturbing fixation on Winter. On one tape, his voice admitted thoughts no friend should ever have. It was like entering the private diary of a predator. And prosecutors would later play these tapes for the jury, letting them hear the monster in his own words. But it wasn't just words. Forensic evidence linked him as well. Ammunition recovered at the scene matched bullets found in his possession. Forensic experts testified to the connections. Science piecing together what Bramblett hoped the fire would destroy. Witnesses placed him near the family home. And then there were his behaviors after the murders. Suspicious comments, knowledge of details no outsider could have known unless he had been inside that inferno of violence. 2 years passed before the full case came together. In July 1996, a grand jury indicted him. Bramblett was arrested in Spartanburg, South Carolina, far from Vinton, where the memory of the fire still haunted neighbors. The arrest sent ripples. This wasn't some unknown drifter. This was their friend, the man who had sat at the Hodges table. Imagine you're a juror in 1997, sitting in the courtroom. The prosecution lays out the evidence. Circumstantial, yes, but powerful when woven together. They play the tapes. You hear his voice, cold, obsessive, describing his feelings toward Winter. You hear his bitterness toward Blaine. You see the ballistic reports. You learn how the fire was set not by accident, but deliberately to erase his crime. The defense tries to paint another picture, arguing there's no direct witness, that the case is built on bits and pieces. But in the end, those pieces form a mosaic too detailed to ignore. Prosecutors argued that Bramblett's motive was a twisted mix of obsession and rage, that he killed Blaine and Teresa to remove the parents, and murdered the children to silence the witnesses, the very people he claimed to desire. Jurors were confronted with horror, not only the act of killing, but the psychology behind it. What kind of person strangles a mother, shoots 2 little girls, and then tries to burn away the evidence? After deliberation, the jury returned their verdict. Guilty. Earl Conrad Bramblett was convicted of capital murder, as well as 3 counts of first-degree murder, arson, and firearm charges. And with that conviction came the ultimate sentence: death. He appealed to the Virginia Supreme Court, to federal courts. He challenged the evidence, the tapes, the forensics. But each time, his conviction and sentence were upheld. He asked for clemency, but Virginia's governor denied it. And so, on April 9, 2003, Earl Bramblett was executed in the electric chair at Greensville Correctional Center. His last words, if any, were not ones the world remembers. What people remember is the Hodges family and the way their lives were erased in one night of violence by a man they trusted. But let's pause here and step back. What does this case say about trust? About the masks people wear? Think about it. How many times have you sat in a living room with a family friend, never once imagining that behind their eyes could lurk obsessions and darkness? Bramblett wasn't a stranger. He wasn't a monster hiding in an alley. He was at the table, close enough to know the Hodges' lives, their routines, their vulnerabilities. And that is what makes this case so chilling. Evil didn't come from the outside. It came from within the circle. There are bigger questions, too. The case hinged on circumstantial evidence. No eyewitnesses saw Bramblett pull the trigger or set the fire. What convicted him were the tapes, the forensic links, the pieces stitched together. Do you believe that's enough? Would you, as a juror, have felt certain beyond a reasonable doubt? Or does this haunt you with the possibility, however slim, that he might have gone to his death claiming innocence? And then there's the societal question. Bramblett's recorded tapes showed a man consumed by disturbing thoughts about a child. If those tapes had surfaced earlier, if someone had intervened before his obsession turned deadly, could the Hodges have been saved? How many other tragedies sit on the edge of being prevented, if only warning signs were taken seriously? The Hodges' home is gone, but their memory lingers as a warning. That sometimes, the greatest danger isn't out there in the darkness. It's in the people who stand right beside us, smiling, laughing, pretending. Earl Bramblett was executed, but justice can never truly balance the scales. For lives, a family destroyed, and all because of the twisted desires and bitterness of one man. So now I turn to you. What do you think? Was justice truly served in the case of Earl Bramblett? Or does the reliance on circumstantial evidence leave you unsettled, even knowing the disturbing tapes he left behind? Could anything have prevented this tragedy? Or was it inevitable once a man like Bramblett walked into their lives? Thank you for joining me today on the True Crime Shadow. If this story left you as shaken as it left me, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters, and your perspective helps us reflect not only on these crimes, but on the world we live in today. In our next episode, we'll uncover another chilling case that will make you question everything you thought you knew about trust, family, and the thin line between normal life and horror. Until then, stay safe, stay aware, and keep your loved ones close.